dangerous territory I want to talk about. When I first saw that icon, I immediately thought of the BMW logo, which is blue and white offset in a black circle, very similar to that. Well, even though it doesn't have the BMW letters on it, BMW has trademark rights in that logo. Very recognizable, very well known. You can think of some other pretty similar ones. If I had an M in yellow on a red background, what would you think that reminds you of? How about a swoosh? I think just saying that would give you a good indication of what I'm thinking of. Talking about golden arches, McDonald's, the Nike swoosh. There's a myriad number of other icons that are very representative of industries, trademarks, and logos. When you're using icons, while it may be useful to be reminiscent of a certain brand name, you're not allowed to do that. That can enter you into trademark trouble. So remember, icons, one of the other reasons to keep them simple is to keep them unique and to not infringe on other people's logos. Some additional rules. I've already mentioned to use icons for nouns and not verbs. Consider the norms for your users. What means something for one culture may not mean the same for another. So you want to be consistent across groups. If you're dealing with techies, you're using a very tech-oriented program, then you can icon accordingly. But either way, your icon should be something that resonates with your user audience. I say don't reinvent the floppy. In other words, if there's something that everyone knows, it's a universal symbol, go ahead and use it. That's only going to make life easier for your users. They can bring in their background knowledge and they don't have to learn something new. As always, simplicity is crucial. Take a look at these icons here on the bottom right. These were chosen specifically because they're quite complex. And look at the top right there. I don't know if that's a biohazard or poison or nuclear or just something really, really bad. There's a whole lot of things going on in these various icons, and they're not necessarily indicative of what happens. So simplicity is crucial. We want to keep it as simple and straightforward as possible. And there's a maxim in the book on 665. If people have to learn hieroglyphics to use your program, they're not going to stick around. So if your icons, if you do have a really unique task that you're trying to get across in your program, you may want to think about doing it in text, or if you have to design an icon for it, really spend some time in thinking, how can I show in a simple manner what this is? Of course, this is a great time to mention that using a tooltip, if you mouse over the icon long enough, a little text tooltip will come up and tell you what the icon means, is very, very valuable. In fact, I'd say it's almost standard practice nowadays. Using tooltips are a great way to help facilitate the learning curve for your users. Let's move on now to images. As I mentioned already, images are there to supplement the text and the content. Now, of course, images are most valuable when they're conveying information that we can't convey through text alone. Where is our chief use of images to convey information? Think newspapers, magazines. Picture's worth 1,000 words, as they say. Look at that picture on the bottom left. It's almost hard to create a caption for that. It's a pretty powerful image. The picture on the bottom right, I'm not quite sure it does the same amount of justice, but hey, if you want to turn a bathrobe reversed and call it a product, I suppose that you better have a good image justifying exactly why people should buy it. So there you go. So particularly with television, video media, but especially with news, images are really valuable in conveying content themselves. We need to be careful though not to make our graphics look like banner ads, or of course users are going to ignore them or not give them the importance they deserve. Let's talk more about specifics. So much to talk about on this slide. When I had started this as a PowerPoint presentation, each of those 3 pictures were going to come up separately, but now I'm doing this in iMovie to try and get the narration better with the slides. So now you have wonderful images to check out. At any rate, images. You generally want to use a thumbnail or scaled version. We've talked before about page loading, content, size on the page. Usually you want to keep images small but visible. We do want to allow full size though if there's a user need for it. So there's a clip in the online newspaper, you want to see the full-size image of it, go ahead and click on it to see the full-sized image. You can think photo sites, same idea, or any place that you need a high-resolution image. Doing that allows the user not only to go to an additional page only if they need it, but it also allows you to keep that high-resolution, high-quality image off the main page, so you can add more content and decrease loading time. Now, pictures of people. Why do pictures of people matter? Interestingly enough, as the book points out, pictures of people are reassuring. In fact, we often include some sort of image of people with transactions to help show, hey, even though you're dealing business with a faceless machine, there's people here and you should feel more comfortable. There's something reassuring about seeing a group of people, like that tiny multi-ethnic group I pasted there. Notice they don't say the village people, which do the opposite and in fact do not build confidence in the system you're using. Now, why did I include the image of Chuck Norris there? Well, believe it or not, when I searched for random pictures in Google, Chuck Norris was one of the first images that came up. Random pictures do the opposite of the pictures of people and pictures that relate to your content. Random pictures, in fact, detract from the user confidence on your page or application. A random picture is going to confuse the user or just wonder why the heck it's there. Either way, you're going to undermine the confidence your user has in the content. That being said, it also gives me the excuse to tell you a couple things. Specifically, Chuck Norris, you may not have known this, but if you have $5 and he has $5, Chuck Norris has more money than you. And related to the techies of us, I just learned that there's no control button on Chuck Norris's computer. Why? Chuck is always in control. Okay, one more. Chuck Norris, you may have known this, but he destroyed the periodic table. That's right. Chemists out there, he destroyed the periodic table. Chuck Norris only recognizes the element of surprise. All right, back to the lecture. Other media. Well, when it comes to other media, we want to use what best gets the job done. The book goes into a great deal of specifics about when to use diagrams and what styles, and when to use video. Now, it's not just about using video to get the job done. In other words, we want to have some sort of motion capture, present images, present animation. But nowadays, in Web 2.0 and the modern internet, video content is becoming increasingly useful. So if there's something you want to express in video, or you just want to attract users to your site with some video content, video is useful. However, consider your audience and your load times. If video is not going to be important or your audience won't care, don't bother putting it in. It's only going to increase the load time of the page or distract, especially when the video auto-loads. Either way, remember that content is king. You want to deliver whatever content your users are going to want or need when they go to your site or application. So choose the media that best supports that. Let's talk now about color. You have this color wheel in front of you here. There's a wealth of color out there. There's a wealth of knowledge about it. There's even 2 articles I've included in today's lecture regarding color. Color is important. There's a lot of uses of color, but it has advantages and disadvantages. So we want to use it intelligently. The advantages to color that it accentuates. It in fact makes things clearer, easier to read, and draws attention. But it also, for those same reasons, can distract. So what are some of the key uses of color? Well, we can use them to code or identify things. Here's a group of things, we'll color them one way. Here's another group, we'll color them another way. It's also especially used for contrast, and we've talked about this, particularly in your interface designs and the tests that you guys submitted. Many of you recommended using bold or using a color to help break apart the information. We're talking headers or information you want to jump out at you. We looked at those terrible examples last week about how some of those sites use red for text. Well, we all know red is an eye-catching, emergency sort of color. So not only did it provide contrast, but in that case it was unintentional contrast. So we have to balance this extremely high attention-getting capacity that color has. In fact, it brings to mind the maxim on page 700. Poor use of color is worse than not using it at all. That's pretty strong. As awesome as color is, and as wonderful it is to provide all sorts of color, differentiation, and such like that, we do not want to do a bad job of implementing color. It's only going to make things worse than if we had started in black and white and stayed there. So let's talk about how to use color effectively, and what the colors